Hey folks, you know how if you ever look up a recipe online, it always starts with like 20 paragraphs about the chef and how much they love these summer squash, cold noodle, salad pops or whatever. Now, there's a reason that they do that. It's so they can fit more ads on the page. But imagine loving that recipe so much you want to tell all your friends about it and then starting with that 20 paragraph story instead of just telling them the ingredients. Ridiculous, right? Well, in the same vein, there's a lot of preamble that you can usually skip when teaching a board game. Alright, so in case you don't know, my name is Shay Parker and I teach board games professionally, which was not a career option when I was a kid. So, live your dreams. And today I'm going to be giving you a tip on how to improve your game nights by teaching in a somewhat unorthodox manner. In front of me, I've got the Gale Force 9 version of Dune, that classic troops on a map game where you're duking it out for control of this spicy desert world. And yes, I know I just used Dune Imperium for my last How to Teach, but this is just such a perfect example of what I'm going to be talking about that I had to go for it. And besides, Dune is cool, so shut up. And sit down, we got work to do. So, let's say you got a group of friends and you want to teach them Dune, and for whatever reason you decided not to send them my tutorial video. I'm gutted, but I'll get over it. Now, once you've given them the setting and what they're trying to do, you might be tempted to just follow the order set out in this rulebook for teaching the mechanics. But here's the problem. This rulebook, along with most rulebooks, is a reference guide. So yeah, they had to write it in a certain order, and you probably have to read it in a certain order, but you absolutely should not try to teach this game in that order. See, this game has 9 separate phases, and while you will be doing most of them each round, they are in order: boring, 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 interesting, boring, super important, important and interesting, boring, and boring. Now, when you sit people down in front of a big map full of units that you have set up as much as possible ahead of time, because setup is also kind of boring, they are naturally going to assume that that's where the game is. It's arguable whether that's correct or not, but if you start things off by teaching 3 boring phases in a row, people might start to tune out, especially because those aren't necessary in order to get to the fun stuff. So if I'm teaching this game, I'm skipping a full half of these phases. I'm starting on the deploying and moving units phase, then I'm going to combat, because everyone loves combat. And then, because cards are important for combat, I'm going to move back to the bidding phase, which is where you get those cards. What I'm doing here is I'm focusing in on what I consider to be the game. By that, I mean the parts that people are going to spend the most time on and are going to have the biggest impact on the outcome. And only once I've covered those do I go back to like the start of turn phases where, sure, things happen, but they're just not as exciting. So what you need to do is really try to identify those parts that people are going to want to know and what they're going to need to know, and try to hit those points as soon as you can. Now, I should say a few things, because it is possible to go a little overboard with this. First off, context is important. So I do introduce those 9 phases, and I might even go over them a little bit so that you know what I'm skipping over. Next, I am skipping these phases at first, but obviously you do need to go back and teach them eventually. It's the order that I'm ignoring, not the mechanics themselves. And lastly, this will not be necessary for all games. Some games have an amazing rulebook, and you could practically read it verbatim when teaching a game. Just not most of them. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've read through a rulebook and had to go through 8 pages of important concepts before I even got to the structure of a round. It's my biggest pet peeve in games. I hate it. Anyway, the point of that is to say that this applies to most games, but not all of them. But most of them. So that's my tip for the day. If you follow it, along with all of the other fine tips that I've provided in this series, I think you're going to have a much easier time getting your next big game to the table. Anyway, thank you for being here. I hope that you like these videos. They're a bit of a departure from what I normally do, but I really enjoy making them when I have the time. So if you like watching them and you want to see more, please let me know in the comments below. And if you wanted to subscribe while you're at it, that'd be nice. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.